Yes. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the People's National Party headquarters. And here with me today, we have the leader of the party and the leader of the opposition, Mr. Mark Golding. And to his immediate right, the legal advisor of the party, member of parliament from West Cape, St. Andrew, Tony Hilton. Today, we're gonna be having a discussion with you, the members of the media and the wider public, in relation to some happenings around the outcome of the general elections that were held just over a week ago. Some may be wondering why it took us so long to speak, but we have the opinion that you have to have the discomfort of thought before you have the comfort of opinion. In other words, you should first seek to understand before seeking to be understood. And so we took the time so we could examine the information that is out there. We could meet with the officer core of the party, which we did yesterday, and to meet with the candidates. And we also had that meeting as well yesterday. We will undergo a process of review that will start from the constituency level, getting a report from the individual constituencies. We will also get a report from the regions based on how our party is structured. And of course, there will also be a national appraisal committee that will look at the election results, what we did right, what we did wrong, what we need to improve on, and the process to implement any change. Now I'm going to ask the leader of the party to give a more general overview of the elections and the way forward.
Thank you, Dr. Campbell. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, good morning. I wish to thank all who supported our election campaign, all of our 63 candidates and their campaign teams, our party workers, our supporters who came out and voted for our candidates, our bloggers, our donors and contributors, our election day workers, our police, military. We increased our vote nationally in this election by over 97,000 Jamaicans. And we doubled the number of seats that we hold in Parliament from 14 to 28. Our team in Parliament is strong, and we will be a formidable force in the Parliament of the land to hold the government to account and to defend the rights and interests of the Jamaican people. I'm happy to announce that all our MPs elect, except for one who is traveling abroad, have signed a letter to the Governor General confirming their support for me to be appointed leader of the opposition. Since the election, our party has been active. A meeting of the officers of the party was held yesterday to discuss the way forward and internal issues that we need to chart a time frame for, related to things like our various internal conferences, annual conference, and so on. This was followed by another gathering of our candidates and the national campaign team to thank everyone for their efforts and to have initial dialogue around the conduct of the elections in each constituency. Written reports from each constituency team will be required, and further evaluations are to follow. And the General Secretary mentioned an appraisal committee which will be constituted to do an overall in-depth assessment of what took place. And our executive committee of the party will recommence its meetings on Monday coming. I now want to address the widespread concerns that have been expressed in the public domain about the conduct of the general election last week, Wednesday, the 3rd of September, 2025. As a responsible political movement that is committed to nation building and national development, it was important that we should await having reliable information before speaking to these issues, rather than proceeding on raw emotion and hearsay. Having waited for the final count to establish the official results in each constituency, including ascertaining the number of spoiled or rejected ballots and how these were apportioned between the two parties, the advice that we have received from our lawyers who attended the final counts is that a magisterial recount is unlikely to change the outcome in any of the seats. In the case of West Central St. Andrew, however, the nature of the irregularities which took place there is being carefully scrutinized in anticipation of a case being brought to the constituted authority for appropriate relief. I won't be able to answer more questions on that today. That matter is with our lawyers.
Which one?
While we don't have sufficient evidence to mount a legal challenge against the outcome of the elections, we are nonetheless deeply concerned at the extensive and I would say vulgar use of state resources to impact the outcome of the election over the campaign period. Specifically, the massive political advertising paid for by ministries, departments, and agencies of government during and up to election day at the cost of taxpayers to benefit the incumbent JLP administration is problematic. And we are going to have to, as a nation, look at the way in which public resources are used in support of political achievements in the election period. We're also concerned about the unprecedented scale of distribution of benefits, black tanks, fertilizer, building materials, cash, by both the state and the Jamaica Labour Party. And in some cases, it's very different to distinguish one from the other. And we have received numerous reports of widespread suppression of PNP votes across marginal constituencies, with reports of very large sums of money being paid. And this strategy was enhanced by the timing of the elections and related giveaways in the back-to-school week, when parents in low-income families in particular are most vulnerable and could be financially induced to prioritize loyalty to their families and their children over party loyalties. A second concern we have is in relation to some aspects of the operations as conducted by the Electoral Office of Jamaica. We think there should be an independent inquiry into the operation of the 2025 general election, and it should be urgently undertaken with changes implemented for future elections, because we need to improve the processes. In particular, the process that results in hours-long waits at many polling stations by voters who turn out to vote, frustrating electors and causing many to leave without voting. And this factor is exacerbated by the law, which only gives 3 hours as a window to employees to be away from their workplace during working hours for voting, which is clearly inadequate in Jamaica's modern realities when you consider the time for transportation to get to a polling station from the workplace, depending on where the person works and where they vote, and the lengthy delays in the lines in some polling stations. We also need to look at the use of finger inking. That was originally implemented to prevent multiple voting, but it currently facilitates voter suppression as persons are being induced financially to dip their finger in ink prior to the vote and then being paid not to vote. We have several reports of this being done. We're also concerned about the black book, and we believe that the polling that is used in polling stations, it must be made available during the polling process for viewing by indoor agents and not left entirely to the presiding officer to identify voters who present themselves without IDs. Because if the presiding officer is operating in a way that is not satisfactory from an independent, impartial point of view, there needs to be the ability of the indoor agents on either side to scrutinize what is going on there. And The integrity of the voters list needs to be re-verified through a comprehensive re-verification of voters to clean it of dead voters in particular and other voters who don't have a place of residence in the constituency where they vote. We will be sending teams into those constituencies which were most affected by these issues to conduct a field survey. This survey will empower Jamaicans who experienced or witnessed these issues to share their experiences with us. Many persons are deeply upset by what took place, and this process will allow them to get some closure. It will also assist us to advocate for changes to the law and the processes of elections that will ultimately help to protect Jamaica's democracy from tactics that clearly affected the ultimate outcome of the 25 general election and which are not contemplated by the system that we have. I will now hand over to our legal advisor. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Party Leader. As you've said at the beginning, and the General Secretary has commented, we are at this time not intending to have any magisterial recounts. Other processes that are available, legal processes that are available, are being looked at based on the evidence that will come forward. I will just echo the point that you make about a review of the management of the election by the EOJ. I think after almost 30 years of the system that was robust at the beginning, I think there is no concern that gaps are opening up and they need to be examined. And we will be doing so by the processes that you have outlined in the various constituencies and regions as well. So the other point really is the legislative and regulatory improvements that may well result from all of this, which is to ensure that the use of state resources prior to and during elections are much better managed. And I think there are clearly loopholes there, and we need to fill those gaps through the legislation and or regulation. And I believe that the point was well made by the abuse that we saw during this election. Those are the points I will add at this time. Thank you, MP Hilton. No, so in relation to I know one of the media houses carried an article saying that we were going for a magisterial recount in 2 constituencies. I'm not sure where they got that report from, because we did not give that information to the media. We know that on the night of election, you have a preliminary count, and in the days after, you have the final count, which we waited on, so we could get what is the official result from the EOJ. And after looking at that, we realized that there were 3 constituencies: Central Kingston, East Central St. Catherine, and Northern Trelawney, where the number of rejected ballots were more than the margin of victory. However, when we consulted with the teams that were present for the final count, we were reliably advised by them that of the rejected ballots, they are split roughly evenly between the 2 main political parties, and therefore you would not get any material change in the result in the constituencies. And as a result of that, we took a decision not to pursue any magisterial recount. So that is the official position of the People's National Party. We do have some other concerns of acts of intimidation, aggression, and vandalism that would have taken place since the elections have been concluded, and specifically in South St. James, the Anchovy Division, persons have been making threats about removing the water pumps, and I think they even made reference to using dynamites and other things like that to destroy the infrastructure. We've seen videos as well and heard voice notes of persons in Eastern Portland that would have made comments that resources would be limited to the newly elected Member of Parliament, ISAT Buchanan. We have seen as well in Southeast St. Mary, where there's been vandalism of a community center and the removal of certain infrastructure in that area. And probably the most concerning of them all is in South Trelawney, where a team from the Labour Party, led by persons in leadership, went to the house, the accommodation of our candidate, Paul Patmore, to threaten him. We believe that these things are intended to intimidate and weaken the democratic process within the country. And we are calling on the members of the Labour Party, the leadership, to rein in their supporters and for them to understand that we do believe in a democratic process and we have to accept the outcome. Similarly to how we have accepted the result at the national level, it can't be that they accept it at the national level, but at the constituency level, they are reluctant to accept that Isaac Buchanan did defeat Anne-Marie Vaz in a free and fair election that took place in East Portland, and that as the duly elected representative, he should be accorded with all the respect and the authority that should be conveyed on such a office. We also want to encourage our candidates across the length and breadth of the country to remove the paraphernalia that was put up during the time of campaigning. And some of our candidates will not have much to do because their opponents already removed them before the elections. But for those that still have up some material, we're going to ask them, use this opportunity to ask them to remove those paraphernalia from the different constituencies. And I know that the municipal corporations will be playing a role in ensuring that we can return to normalcy. The matter surrounding West Central St. Angel is a matter, as was said by the leader of the party, that the legal team that has been engaged by our candidate is putting together their documents, and for further information on that, they will speak at a later date. And so we'll leave it at that, and I will now open the floor to get any questions that may exist. Who's monitoring this? Is it Nationwide or Riva? What is the appropriate name?
Siobhan Campbell, still Nationwide News. My question is to Mr. Golding. Based on the concerns raised, are you casting doubt on the legitimacy of the outcome of the 2025 general elections? And are you concerned that such doubts would raise speculation in Jamaican people and cast a shadow on Jamaica's electoral process?
I'm concerned about the widespread reports that we have received of voter suppression strategies that were employed, in particular to dissuade our supporters and in some instances our workers from voting, and in the case of workers from turning up in some instances for the elections. I'm not seeking to in any way suggest that we are not accepting that the government that has been elected will be duly constituted. I don't want to go down that road. I don't think that's a wise road for Jamaica. But I also think it's important that we don't sweep things under the carpet, which have become and which were in this election a significant factor at play. And the use of financial resources to suppress votes, based on what we have heard, these are now indirect reports. That's why we're going to go through a process of going into the field to hear from people directly what they experienced and what they saw. But based on the reports that we've received, this is a matter which really needs to be confronted by Jamaica's democracy, and certainly by our party going forward as to how we can try to respond to these types of tactics, which have become a central part of how our opponent operates in trying to secure power for themselves.
Let me just comment a little more on what the party just said, which is that in Guyana, recently there was a general election in Guyana on September 1. I think we're all aware of that. Coming out of that election, the EU delegation, the European Union delegation, has issued a report. And when I read the report, a lot of what they commented on and expressed concern about were actually at play, certainly complained of widely in the Jamaican situation. And that tells you that the question of the democratic process being legitimized is also a question of the various activities and the concerns and the issues that are raised that will affect the quality of the democracy. And I think that's a lot of the concerns that are being raised here and need to be pursued is around not just the specific legal aspects, but about some of the concerns and gaps that may have opened up in our electoral system that needs to be addressed.
Morning, Desmond Richards here, Rebel Radio. Mr. President, have you identified reasons why the party lost? And secondly, what are your concerns about the low voter turnout? And I would like to hear if the party has plans to encourage voters to hold their votes.
I would say that there's something perplexing about the voter turnout statistics, based on the fact that during the campaign, right through to the end of the campaign, the energy and enthusiasm on the ground was palpable, significant, and suggested that there would have been a stronger turnout. As indeed, the polls, right up to the last poll, which was published on the Sunday before the election, indicated that, based on the expressions of persons polled, they were expecting a significantly higher turnout. What happened on the day needs to be examined carefully. I think it was a combination of factors at play. I think that there were persons who didn't vote because the lines were long and slow, often in the hot sun, sometimes in the rain, and they got fed up and left. I think that the financial inducements of which I speak or have spoken were a major factor as well in dissuading some people from voting. In terms of why we didn't win the election, we lost it narrowly. If we had 4 more seats, we would form government today. And when we look at the seats that we have in mind, we lost all of those by less than 500 votes. And in all of those, some of the issues which I raised were prominent factors at play. So obviously, I don't want to prejudge what the appraisal committee will say based on their investigations. But as I said, the low voter turnout is a bit of a mystery as to why that transpired, given what we know and what we saw and what we felt during the campaign. I would say one other thing, which is that the voters list itself has not been cleansed comprehensively for over a decade. I can't even remember when the last proper re-verification.
Early 2000.
Early 2000. So it's probably 2 decades now since that was done. And given the nature of our population, how people move around, move to other parts of Jamaica to seek work, and that sort of thing, and the people who die, and there's no automatic removal of voters on there. the number on the voters list from which the percentage turnout is derived is a questionable number. And so the voter turnout statistic itself is necessarily understated. The degree of understatement is what we don't know.
And if I may add to that, the People's National Party polled an additional 97,000 votes over the 2020 elections. The Jamaica Labour Party polled 5,000 more over that time. And as has been said, if you look at some of our areas, there was significant suppression that took place in some of our areas by person inducing individuals in there not to go to vote. And with the long lines that were present at the polling station, there is a question for the ECJ to answer. Because if we had a turnout of only 39% and we had such long lines with such delays, one shudder to think what would have happened if the turnout had been 50%. Because significant delays took place on the day. I was on the phone from early with the director trying to resolve some of the issues. And you did have persons in those lines that turned away. So we lost 4 constituencies by less than 500 votes. Each of those constituencies have over 100 polling stations. It's just 5 persons in each of those that got frustrated and left that would have made that difference. And so it is a significant thing. And I think we have to resolve how we do this thing. I was third in line at my polling station and didn't vote until I was there before 7. Didn't vote until about 10 minutes to 8 before I completed the exercise. That's just not acceptable in my opinion. So there was a decision that was taken that persons that showed up without ID should have been placed in a separate line and that you should have started the process from outside with an additional agent. That did not obtain in all constituencies. And so you had, in some cases, what appeared to be a deliberate attempt for persons to turn up without the IDs to deliberately slow down the process. And so there is a need for a proper review of the process and for us to ensure that the elections are indeed free and fair and that people can express their rights.
And I'll just add that if you anticipated a larger turnout, which the poll suggested we may have had, then the planning, it seems to me, was inadequate. The planning by the EOJ must have been inadequate because in the event, only 39% or so turned up, and we had
voted, not turned up.
Well, voted,
yeah,
actually voted, and we had such problems. So and low turnout, vote turnout. So I think the planning has to be questioned, and perhaps an audit is appropriate at this time as well.
Team are at CVM TV. We've seen at rallies there are crowds and a lot of support. Even with the big gains, how do you plan to keep the base energized after the back-to-back defeats, Mr. President, PNP President?
Well, after a campaign ends, there's a process of reflection, there's a process of analysis, there's a process of reconnection with our base and our supporters. And there's also, I think there are some reforms internally that we need to pursue as well to strengthen our overall organization. So the way in which we plan to handle the matter would be through a period of careful analysis of what took place and a recognition of where there are weaknesses that need to be strengthened and the deliberate pursuit of changes that will strengthen those weaknesses. So, one doesn't energize the base from the start of a 5-year term of government. Energizing the base comes from the kind of process involved in campaigning. But what we need to ensure is that we stay in touch with our base, that we strengthen our constituents in divisional organizations so that when the time comes, we're able to deliver an effective result. And we are starting now from a much stronger position than we have enjoyed over the previous 5 years. With us 14 in Parliament before, it was much more difficult. Only 14 MPs out of 63 were PNP MPs. Only 14 out of 63 PNP MPs got state resources through the Constituency Development Fund to help to do the work that they have to do. So it's moving from a very limited base in Parliament is difficult, and it required extraordinary effort to take us where we are now. With 28 seats to their 33, 35, I mean, the situation is much more balanced, and that will enable us to build on that to be even more effective next time around.
But you also pointed out partly that there'll be engagement in the field from now in the reviews. I believe, certainly speaking from my own constituents and from talking to others out of yesterday's meeting, that process of engagement will be helpful because a lot of the concern and the sense of rejection that is there comes from some of these things complained of. And I think once you're on the ground investigating, giving people an opportunity to speak and to vent some of that frustration, I think that will be part of the process of healing and engagement. Part of the process of healing and engagement. So I think that process will be ongoing.
Morning again. Indulge me a couple of questions. One, given what you have described as acts of voter suppression, can you indicate whether or not the PNP has made a formal complaint about electoral fraud or irregularities to any state organ? And if so, in what constituencies? That's one. Two, can you indicate, sir, what is the projected spend for the People's National Party during this election campaign? Can you say also how was it funded and what percentage is corporate donation? And then finally, personally, Mr. Golding, is this disappointing for you? And if so, how disappointing?
So your first question was whether a formal complaint has been made to any state organ in respect to the voter suppression of which we speak. The answer to that is no. We are, as I've said, going into the field to do a survey so that we can get more tangible information rather than the indirect reports that we have been receiving. Through the reports we're receiving is really through both things like social media, but also more importantly through the campaign structures that we have. But we want to go into the field and get more, a more comprehensive survey of what took place. At that point, we can decide, where we go from here. There isn't really any state agency that is mandated to address that issue. That's one of the challenges we have. So it's that is something we'll have to consider carefully as the best way to proceed, to deal with this. Some of these things may require a strengthening of the electoral law itself, the Representation of the People's Act, which, to take into account the kind of methods and tactics that are being employed in this era relative to when that law was last amended or reviewed. Other things may just require an internal response as to how we manage that kind of process going forward. So that's my answer to your first question. Your second question was about campaign finance. Yeah. I haven't seen from our treasurer yet a final report on the level of funding raised and expended. Based on my assessment of it or knowledge of it, I would say most of the funding that we raised came from donors. Some are corporate donors, some are individual donors. And I'm very sure that they were within the overall envelope allowed by the law in terms of the limits. I can tell you that because I have a sense for the numbers, but I don't have the specifics. And the third question was about yeah, it's a mixed feeling. I feel pleased that we are on the up and up, that we have managed to double the number of MPs that we have in Parliament, that we are going to have a team in Parliament now that is going to be formidable as an opposition, given the people who won. And we have an excellent team. And the fact that we got 97,000 more votes this time than we got in 2020 is also significant as an increase. Our opponents got 5,000 more votes. So it was a definite improvement in our performance. Disappointment at the same time that we weren't able to deliver that final, 5 additional, well, call it 4 that we needed to just have 32, which is the threshold for winning. That was disappointing. And when we look at the seats that we thought we would have won and didn't, we have to look carefully at why we weren't able to prevail there. I think that the reasons for that were more to do with factors that took place on election day itself and maybe the night before or 2 nights before, rather than the campaign as a whole. I think the campaign as a whole, we ran a pretty exemplary campaign. I think it was a much more active campaign than our opponents in terms of presence on the ground and meetings and rallies and the attendance at those rallies. I think our manifesto was delivered in a reasonable time so people could digest it and was well received. I think that our performance in the election debates, where most people feel that we won each of the 3 debates, was also significant and helped us along. But, we weren't able to actually cross the line first because things went on, as I said, the very end of the process, which we were not able to respond to effectively on the day. And for that, we must all take some responsibility, including me as party president. Is there somebody determining who speaks when? Yeah. So,
Morning, gentlemen. What positives can you take from the campaign? Excuse me.
the speakers, right?
Yes. What positives can you take from the campaign? And what are your views generally about your team, the team you put together? Okay, it's a bit disappointing to lose, obviously, but when you reflect back, um, to say 5 years ago, from where you came from there to where you are now, what positives? And secondly, what plans do you have to bolster your treasury? You're definitely a political force in this country again, and maybe perhaps the treasury angle of it will get you over the line, maybe possibly next time. But you have to have an effective treasury if you're fighting a campaign in the 21st century. So what do you see going forward? How do you entice, say, the business community, other people to bolster that treasury campaign?
Yeah, in terms of positives, I think that we now have a united party. We have a team that is working together and has worked together well throughout the campaign. I think that the organization as a whole is strong. That's not to say there aren't areas that need improvement. There are. But we did significant training, for example, of our workers over the last several months. And we were really building on the success in the local government elections, February 2024, where we won the popular vote quite handsomely there. And we ended up with six municipal corporations and the city municipality of Portmore making 7, which is the same number as the JLP have, but we have 1 more division than they do. So there's been a kind of process over the 5 years of building an improvement, which I think was reflected in the 97,000 additional votes that we got and the 14 additional seats that we won. Now, going forward, you mentioned the Treasury. I mean, we got, I would say, good support from the donor base that we have, corporate and individual. we were able to finance our program. We didn't have the sort of additional resources for deploying in the field to do the sort of things that we were up against, and that was never part of our budget anyway. We weren't seeking to do that. That's not a strategy that we employ. But, in terms of being able to pay our media houses for the advertising that we had booked and developing that advertising and paying our party workers, for their efforts and the paraphernalia and so on that we were, we were able to hold our own. And going forward, we will just be encouraging Jamaica to understand the importance of maintaining financial balance in how they fund political parties, because if one party has excessive resources relative to the other, it can affect the democratic outcome of elections quite easily. So, these are the sort of arguments that we impress upon donors, and we have been, we get good response for the most part. So I don't have any issue really there with the fundraising side of the campaign.
Yes. Good. All right. Greetings to all at the press table. President MG, this one is for you, sir.
Who is this?
I am Baba Tunde's Stargate Communications. Before I get into my questions, I would just like to start on a positive by saying there are some things that you initiated that changed the experience for the Rastafari community, especially from with the ganja experience and all. Only more than if we do, but we must acknowledge when positive moves made. We acknowledge that. So we kick off the party. So the first question, seeing all of what we see now, maybe some 8-9 days after the election, was the People's National Party fully prepared? I have two more. I can know if I have a pause and answer or go with the other two and then.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that we didn't ultimately win the election suggests that there are areas where our preparation could have been stronger. I think that what we have come to realize going through this experience is that some of the tactics that we have to manage are not normal orthodox in the book tactics, but are things that are being deployed quite effectively by our opponent, which we haven't yet, I think, mastered a methodology of responding to. So I think I would say what would you regard as the orthodox way in which campaigns are conducted and way political organization is done, we were ready. But in terms of specific seats, which those tactics were being deployed, our response to them was inadequate.
All right. So in your preparation going forward, it's a little bit of small advice that you don't have to pay for. Art of war must be studied. Next question for you now, President MG. The positive way forward, and there are aspects of your manifesto that are tangible and excellent. What plans are in place to not wait till 2030, but to one, empower the people and implement where it can. Much appreciated for listening. You got those?
Yeah, I mean, in response, I think that I need to actually say something about that. Our manifesto was our series of policy proposals and programs that we had intended to roll out during the first five-year term that we were in government. Those things require being in government to be rolled out. An opposition party gets no state resources to implement plans and programs. We get a modest stipend as MPs to run a constituency office, and that's it. And then there's a CDF, which is a modest sum which hasn't been adjusted for inflation for many years now, of 20 million a year, out of which 1.5 million pays an administrator. So it's 8.5 million to be spent in a constituency with residents typically exceeding 40,000 people. So, I don't want to pretend that the opposition will be in a position to roll out things like the First in Family Scholarship or build 50,000 housing units at an affordable price for people, or to implement rent to own to enable persons who are currently excluded from the mortgage market to become owners of their own home, or indeed a disability fund to help persons with disabilities with $1 billion in it, and those sort of things. Those are things we want to do with reform government. What we will be able to do is individual MPs who have won will be able to pursue their own particular set of policies that they had brought to the people. Some of them will take time. It won't happen overnight. Resources are always an issue. And to the extent they're able to garner additional support through creative methods of fundraising and using the goodwill of people who might want to support those initiatives, that will determine how quickly they can do what they want to do. But it's going to be more on a constituency and MP level that you'll see things happening rather than nationally, because an opposition party is not able to, or indeed expected to, implement national policies. That's for the government of the day.
Just two more, one for Anthony Hilton and one for you, Mr. Golding. Mr. Hilton, you put forward the suggestion comparing Jamaica's electoral process to that of Guyana, which has a history now of concerns about the process, whereas here in Jamaica, we had the OAS, CARICOM, as well as CAFE, all suggesting that the elections were free of harassment, free of intimidation, or any other irregularities, so far as going as to commending us in terms of our conduct here and to put forward Jamaica as a model that the Caribbean can follow. Isn't that a bit out of sorts in terms of that assessment by you in terms of irregularities? And to you, Mr. Golding, your predecessors have all offered their resignations to the wider party following an election loss. Will you not do the same, or will you simply take up your post as opposition leader going into the parliament?
Let me. Well, you want to go first?
No, I'll go
And
first.
let me say, I think the aspects. No, I don't think what you characterize as overstatement, notwithstanding anything that has been said by CAFE or any other organization that participated. The EU focus, and I urge you, and I think you have read the EU report. And if you have, then you'll see that they commented on some other aspects of it, much of which we saw in full force here in Jamaica. The issue that we believe needs to be addressed as an urgent matter is the whole issue of the advertising and promotion before and during the campaign with we believe excessive state resources. And that aspect of it and others were specifically commented on. So my advice is that whatever the specific limitations or the concerns that the OAS or other monitoring group didn't address, the EU's report, I believe, was much broad-based and some of it very relevant to Jamaica.
If I may add something to that before the leader answers the next question. I think we've been very responsible as a party. I think we've been very responsible. Nationwide carried a story that CAFE said that 21% of the persons at the polling station at 5 o'clock were not allowed to vote. We could easily have created a stir with that to suggest that those persons would have voted for us and it would have changed the outcome of the elections. We didn't. We waited for good information, right? For additional information. And we have seen where over the last 2 days, the ECG has refuted what was carried as to what CAFE had said. And then since that, Cafe today in the paper is clarifying that that did not actually take place. So I believe the comment that was made as well was not necessarily comparing the electoral system in the two countries, but about the report that came out of the election. So I don't know how you got to the point of saying he was comparing the two electoral systems. He was speaking to the report that came out and said that there are similarities that we have seen the same thing here. Cafe, CARICOM, and other OAS, other persons that came here would not have been out in the field to see that $100,000 was offered to an indoor agent not to work, or offered to a cluster manager to give me the canvas of this party. They would not have seen that. They would not have seen what took place in the field. They would have been at the polling station, right? They would not have seen the night before that somebody was offered money to dip their finger in ink and therefore can't show up to the polling station. They would not have seen where we saw some persons, MPs, trying to separate people into lines as to who you are going to vote for, totally inappropriate, right? From a high-ranking member of the Jamaica Labour Party. So the issues that we're bringing forward here are things that we have contemplated on, we've heard about, and not just anecdotal things, but things that we can say, these, based on the reports that we've gotten, and there's additional work to do, but there is sufficient evidence to speak to it at this point to suggest that there was indeed an attempt to suppress the votes. Remember that we did run a campaign, where the last credible poll that came out before the election had us ahead by 3 percentage points, right? Not like the one from Nationwide that said we're 13 points behind. That was totally fraudulent, right? And if you look at the outcome of the elections, it was within 1%, as in the popular vote. So it was within that margin of error. And that is after all the suppression that took place by the Labour Party and the delayed voting by the ECJ that caused persons to leave the polling station and not being able to participate.
In relation to, well, first of all, I'm not aware of any historic precedent of which you speak. There have been instances where party leaders have offered their resignation. There have been instances where they haven't, to my knowledge. I serve at the pleasure of the party, and I'm happy to continue to serve in the capacity as leader for as long as the party wants me to. And thus far, all of the MPs who have been elected, all 28, other than one who is overseas traveling, have signed a letter confirming that they have confidence in me and want me to be the leader of the opposition.
Right.
And that's where it is right now.
If I may add again, if I may just add something to that. I want for us not to mislead the public with some of the statements. There are some things that are being said in the public space that are just not true. Andrew Holness was defeated by Portia Simpson Miller in 2011. It seems persons have forgotten that. He did not resign, nor did he offer any resignation. He stayed there. He did not even make public the appraisal committee report that was done, right? 10 of the 21 MPs signed a no confidence in him. He's the one that saved himself with his casting vote. I also hear persons saying that it's historic, unprecedented, this third term. When they say one complain about the PNP being in office for 18 years, the PNP has won 4 consecutive elections in Jamaica. So what is historic? It's historic for the JLP that they have won 3 elections. It's not historic for Jamaica. PJ Patterson won in 93, 97, and 2002. Why do we continue to mislead the public in this vulgar manner?
Mark, I just heard what you said. It's one thing to be endorsed by the party and have the party's confidence, but do you yourself, do you want to lead the party? And then secondly, I'd like to follow up and saying, you don't really want to, as a party, enter another period of fractiousness, internecine warfare that splinters the party. I think you've been an MP since 2007.
2017.
2017, beg your pardon. You brought the party back. It seems united. You fell short. You've doubled your seats. I mean, that I think will go down in history. But do you want to lead the charge? It's all very well being endorsed. You seem to have a good support team around you. But in your heart of hearts, do you want to lead the charge going forward? And secondly, I'd say that you seem to have a deep bench, both in the lower house. What are your plans for the upper house? A lot of bright people around, a lot of people who can take positions. How do you want to lead them and how do you want to deploy it?
Well, I'm not going to comment on the composition of the Senate, which is, you'll hear more very shortly on that. In terms of my own personal aspirations, Al, I feel a continued commitment to my country, Jamaica, where I was born and where I've lived all of my life other than when I was studying abroad, and which has been very good to me, and which my parents instilled in me a sense of service to the people of Jamaica. And I am willing to continue and plan to continue to serve my country through the political process as leader of the People's National Party, moving ahead, going forward from the significant achievements that we have managed to garner in these elections to a victorious result next time round. And as I said, I serve at the will of the party. And so as long as the party has confidence in me to continue, I will be here.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope it was informative, and have a great day.
My Jamaican people, I don't want, I would like the chat to just stay with me for a while. My Jamaican people, let us wrap into that. First, I want to say to all of us, all comrades, that having to listen to what just been communicated, I am 110%. I am putting on 10 more percent on the 100%. That I am proud of my party. I am proud of my leader, right? And we all know we are going to accept defeat humbly as it relates to their so-called win. But we know the truth, right? We have seen the evidence of voter suppression. And as what Dayton Campbell pointed out, right, in a very articulate manner, was to the fact that Cafe wouldn't have witnessed, right, the buying of votes and all of that, right? Cafe remains statistic at fixed at a particular position. They are not going to understand what transpired, right, 3 days prior into the general election. We saw that. We have seen evidence. We have seen the money leaving out of cars into the hands of people, right? Threaten our democracy. So for one to be asking Mark Golding, right, as it relates to, if he wants to continue to lead, Mark Golding has all of the vigor and has much to proud for. So let me say this to our party, right, our comrade. We have much to feel so much proud of. Now, let me just boil it down for you. For Mark Golding, the People's National Party, who limited funds, and I'm going to speak about something which is very significant. The Jamaica Labour Party has all the capital injection. So we need to speak the truth. The media houses need to speak the truth. And you know what? This is one of the reasons why Andrew Holness drape up, right, the Jamaica Broadcasting Corporation, right, in his office to manipulate the media and for the media to communicate, right, on Jamaica Labour Party behalf And if any time that mainstream media being censored by Andrew Holness, right? I've seen example of media personnel who spoke out on certain issues and they were fired. They were fired. So where is the democratic rights? Where's the right of free speech? But Andrew Holness made sure he has that, right? Suppressing the rights of people to speak freely. And so then I am not going to ask Mark Golding, what could you do? What could you have done better? It's an understatement. The question is flawed. And why that question is flawed? Because honestly, Mark Golding has put out his best, and his best has come forward in the delivery of bringing in 40 and having 14 more seats, 100%. Right? Now let me take Jamaica through something which is significant. And to show you how we're proud of Mark Golding and proud of Mark Golding leadership. Let me say this. The People's National Party, this 2025 general election, had polled 97,000 people added as it relates to voting for the People's National Party. 97,000. Now for the Jamaica Labour Party, they were able to poll 5,000 people. Right? More than what they had in 2020. So then this is significant as it relates to Mark Golding achievement and the People's National Party achievement. But them and those and the naysayers who wanted, answer please, who wanted, right, for us to challenge the leader. That is what they are praying for, because they know that Parliament, right, is going to be stronger with 28 lions and lioness and they are going to defend the people's business. Because of that fear, because of that phobia, they want to now create a mayhem to challenge leadership. It's not going to happen. Big Mama, it not go happen. Let me tell you that plain. Right? And any other media house is showing that narrative. It's not going to happen. Mark Golding is the leader for the People's National Party. Mark Golding will be remaining the leader for the People's National Party. You're going to have to deal with the 28 member of parliament. I don't know if it come good. I don't know if it come good. Now, let me tell you something. What is happening? My Jamaican people, I want you to understand what is happening. All of them, media, right, who are talking about Jamaica Labour Party win, they all know what Jamaica Labour Party had done to win. They all know. They are all hypocrites. But this is bigger than the media, right? This is capitalist at work, and I want people to understand that. Let me tell you something. What you see playing out here? What you see playing out here is the same fight that Michael Manley had fought in 1980. Yes. The threat of democratic socialism coming back on top. And let me tell you something. Democratic socialism is coming stronger and stronger, right? Leading by Mark Golding. And Gensec, I salute you. I salute you, Gensec, right? To make sure that you strengthen that unity. So let me say this, right? To all of the naysayers and to all of the crony capitalists, if you notice, I did not say capitalism, I said crony capitalists. For them and those, right? And we see the cronyism working in Portland. And that is why Anne-Marie Vaz, right, got voted out. And the Vaz dynasty is going to be crushed. Because we see crony capitalism executing all over Portland. The land grabbing, right? And the further suffering of our people. You think Portland people are idiots? They know what they are feeling. They're feeling the crunch of crony capitalism. We know what is going on. And so then we stand, right, for equal opportunity throughout. Yes, we have seen that crony capitalism get together, right, and crush as it relates to the People's National Party manifesto, as it relates to 2025. And so then Jamaican people again has to suffer. But it is the people. Let me say this to the people. Bob Marley said, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind. Have no fear for all of their misdoings, right? We have seen that neocolonialism is at work. We have seen the plantocracy at work. And so then the party who decided, as it relates to Michael Manley time, said, enough is enough. Please utilize the opportunity to lift up the poor black people. We have seen when Michael Manley increased the backside. That's one of the reasons why they fight Michael Manley, because the money now was now spreading. When they who on the backside was getting all of the benefit, that four institutions that own the backside. But Michael Manley said enough is enough. We want our resources to be spent to benefit our people. And as a result of that, we have seen Edward Seaga, because it is Edward Seaga dynasty, live on September 3rd, 2025. The violence, the voter suppression, the intimidation. I heard that boy from Big Mama, right? Speaking to Mr. Hilton to say that there is no form of legacy of violence and this and that, say this and that and this and that. They are hypocrites. 1980. What happened in 1980? Because it seems like you're a dunce. But we know you have sat there and someone texts you the questions what you need to ask. I don't know if it's Andrew Holness and his Confederates. Yeah? Because you claim that now you have questions that you want to match up Mr. Hilton. But you're stupid because you don't know your history. If you had known the history, right, you'd have known about what happened in 1980. 1980 worse voter suppression. The CIA hard at work with Edward Seaga to damage democratic socialism. You never know that 1980 exists? Huh? You have not known that 1980 existed? In every election that Edward Seaga run, violence pursued. What are you talking about? And look, the year you born, you might born in the 80s. And so you have lost 20 years of history. Son, you have lost 20 years of history. It is there in the record, the manipulation, the voter suppression, the intimidation. I don't know. So, I mean, tell me, or any organization outside, they are leaning into capitalism. They want capitalism to expand, crony capitalism to expand. They don't want to do. That's why you find it that Ibrahim Traoré have to kick out enough of them. And look on Burkina Faso now. What if they were still there? Burkina Faso would have been suffered, would have been struck. There's a stronghold on Burkina Faso. Until Father God bless Ibrahim Traoré, the spirit of Michael Manley in him. And what he had done, said no to IMF, no to World Bank. Kick them out. Crony capitalist, crony capitalists make Andrew Holness win this election. So the media house being censored, they can't speak on nothing in terms of what social media presenting. The clear evidence of voter suppression. Right? The clear evidence where some of the police were intimidating the very voters. Are we telling lies? So then are you saying that what we are seeing on the video, not no but don't believe what? Your lying eyes? You tell what we witness. So we did not see. Okay, all right. Mainstream media. And all right, Big Mama journalist who went there to ask Mark Golden questions and Mr. Hilton questions. You didn't see, now we are on social media, where Juliet Holness was intimidating the process. You didn't see that? Huh? You didn't see that after Juliet Holness voted, where she should have now exited the area, right? She went to a different polling station. The polling station where she voted. She left there and gone to a different polling station. Utilizing our intimidating tactics. No, I never see that. And what I question Mark Golden about? And when I question PNP, PNP well united. And all of you should be shamed. Right? The problem that Jamaica Labour Party had right now is that they win. They had won the so-called won the general election and cannot feel happy. They can't celebrate. Why you can't celebrate? Because no conscience abide or no. Why you can't celebrate? On conscience big enough because you know what you have done. And in spite of the billions of dollars being spent, in spite of using taxpayers' money and reroute it into the campaign and telling lies as it relates to $1.4 billion spent on all decommissioned bus that you reroute the money, right, and dump it into the campaign. We know. So then mainstream media, are you asking any questions in terms of that line of argument? Eh? Are you asking these questions? No. What you notice with mainstream media as it relates to the censorship of mainstream media. You never look at Paula Lowell in the DPP and ask questions and make comparisons with the case that Paula Lowell tried as it relates to the People's National Party and the Jamaica Labour Party. For example, you understand the FLA incidents where two PNP had lost their firearms and the DPP charged them for whatever reasons they have given. And when you have two GLP lost their firearm for whatever reasons that they had given, no charges for them. And you don't see, mainstream media don't see that. Right? You don't see where Silveria, right, as it relates to what transpired in his home, right, subsequently charged. But when you twist it to Patrick Bailey, in Patrick Bailey's home, he has not been charged, not been intimidated. And Paula Lowell in your DPP sits there as if nothing happened. It is the DPP that continues all of this that you see happening. Everything is on you, Paula Lowell. Paula Lowell, you are the one that corrupted Jamaica. A nation must be guided on the principle of law and must be protected by those who carry out the work of the DPP office. And where you are concerned, you are such person. And so then, You have to ensure that the system of justice is balanced. But what you have done, Paula Llewellyn, right, is defeat the harms of justice by being politically biased and a political operative to the Jamaican Labour Party. That's what you have done. And so then, they are now also decide that the status quo has to be protected. No, you didn't, Paula Llewellyn, mix up and associate yourself with criminals. When you have someone who charged for child molesting, we found the DPP up at this person's place. They turn it around and push it back in. Now you tell me, Jamaica. You tell me, Jamaica. Is this democracy? Is this democracy? And like you people now want to, okay, all right, Mark Golden Arm is having his press release. Let us go there and make sure that, you understand, we make sure that he stay in line. You know, so you people are out of order. You understand? You people continue to protect the status quo of criminality. But I say to all comrade brothers and sisters, stay strong and let us get stronger. Here on social media, let me speak this. I didn't even want to come out and speak this. But some of us on social media, the politics of today and the politics of the future tomorrow is bigger than our ego. Bigger than our ego. The fight is not, I feel like you disrespect me. The fight is much more than that. We are fighting for a nation. And all of us, including myself, must do an introspection. What are we fighting for? We are fighting for a better nation. We are fighting for our sons and daughters, and our sons and daughters, a generation that we are fighting for. It's time now that we leave the plantation. The plantocracy that continues to hold us back on the plantation. You know, when I look, I have a friend, and I know that he's listening to me now. And my wife knows he has never called to me for a long period, like going what, 3 years, 4 years? Mm-hmm. And that friend, I know he's listening, right? He's fully a GLP activist. And just imagine, he has never spoken to me within the last 2 or 3 years. But the morning when GLP so-called won the election, you know, to say I said so-called, I am not saying JLP win the election. So-called won the election because the thief it. Plain and simple. Right? That so-called friend sent me a WhatsApp. I wonder if we can go up on my phone and show people the WhatsApp. And he sent me the Jamaica symbol, 2 finger, up, up. And you know, my Jamaican people, I think he was anticipating for me to utilize arrogance in my answer. And I answered him well. I answered him well. But you know what this tell me, my Jamaican people? This tell me that there are some of us naturally born evil, wicked, and cruel. And what he told me also had given me reason as to why we spent over 400 years in slavery. And so then the slave masters decided that, okay, let us split them. We divide some in house slaves. We divide some as plantation slaves. And so then the house slaves, like Andrew Wallace and some of the neo-colonialists, believed that they're better than the plantation slaves, than the field slaves. The slaves that work in the plantation. But you know what? When you come to a first world country, Andrew Wallace, and all of you who believe that you are better than those in the ghetto, when you come here into a first world country, you will realize that in spite of you are a billionaire or a trillionaire, this carry barriers, and you treat it accordingly. You will never get accepted. How are we going to change this? Take example from Ibrahim Traoré. Look at Burkina Faso today. Look at them. Turn around their economy. But before they had done that, they were told that they couldn't do it. They were told by the crony capitalists, they were told by the neo-colonialists that they couldn't do it. As a matter of fact, after that success being done, they same one who told them that they couldn't do it, they are now spreading propaganda on them. Jamaica, it's time for us to wake. It's time for us to see us. Instead of building more prisons, why not build more community centers? Jamaica Labour Party has a history in attacking our education system. A history, recorded history from 1954 until now that we speak. Jamaica Labour Party is robbing from our Ministry of Education. And why? Because you see, the power that be allowed them to do it and get away with it. Our recent history with Rural Reid, you see, they are fighting for him to get away with it. Because the philosophy of Bustamante must carry through to continue to suppress black people. Starfish is better than education. You claim. Now you tell me. That is why Tivoli Gardens is what it is. Successful government. Look at Tivoli Gardens today. Because Seaga said out of Seaga mouth that give them a little, but not too much, that they can liberate themselves. That came out of Seaga mouth. Give them a little, but not as much for them to liberate themselves. Let us get into the history. Of all the general elections, the Jamaica Labour Party spent more time in power than the People's National Party. Ask this big question now. Why Tivoli Garden has not been improve where you have the Jamaica Labour Party sits in power for the majority time. What? Why you have a jailhouse in Tivoli where you have 2, 3, 4, 5 families using one restroom? Is that life? Is that life? People want to be independent and free and feel liberalized. The people in Tivoli Gardens doesn't feel that way, and they can't speak freely, because if they have spoken freely, you know what will happen. The JLP fanatic, political fanatic in Portland is saying, because you vote out Darrell Bar, because so just imagine if he's saying that, where the Portland people is in a more liberal state than Tivoli. Can you imagine for the people who live in Tivoli what they are going through? If anyone in Tivoli has a wish to vote for PNP, they can never ever make it known. Is that democracy? Ask yourself the question. Is that democracy? No. The level of injustice. So let me say this to my common leader. We proud of you, sir. Right? And I, Mystic Sensation, will never change. Want you to hear this from me. Never ever change. And I will be defending my people through democratic socialism. I want you to big up yourself, Marky G. Proud of yourself. You know what I'm happy about? The representation that we are going to get in Parliament by the 28 lioness and lions. Now, my Jamaican people and my comrade brothers and sisters who are listening to me right now, let me tell you this. The fight continues. And we are getting stronger and stronger. And let me show you why we are getting stronger. We left from 14 to 28. That is not a weaker position. Stronger position. The next time around, from 28 to being in there, where we can liberate our black people from crony capitalism. Stay along, stay tuned, and unite. Mark Bolin has nothing to feel ashamed of. And I want to tell him, don't feel no sense of disappointment. Because what you have done, Mark Jefferson Golden, is victory for us. You have given us voice in Parliament. Andrew Holness feeling defeated, even though he's so-called win. Because he's saying to himself, God damn it, this man stopped me from being a dictator. This man stopped me. How does this going to move on for constitutional reform? And what I want to do in constitutional reform, change up the Senate, right? That I have strong, solid backing. Andrew, honest news to you, it can't happen again. And remember, you still have a dark cloud over your head as it relates to the Integrity Commission, right? And we are going to ask Mark Golden to challenge you to give us back those committee, the PAC and the PAAC. Remember, we want them back so that we can have oversight on taxpayers' money. And that should be the first fight of the day. So Marky G and Jensek, Remember, we're going back for the PAC, we're going back for the PAAC. We want oversight because taxpayers want to know how their money been spending. We don't want some money, $1.4 billion, that's supposed to approve by the cabinet secretary, not being approved by the cabinet secretary. And then man wants to use badmanism. We are not seeing purchase order, or we are not seeing invoice. And so they don't feel free. That you can go in our treasury, dip, out, and no account. Now that you want to do, dip, take out, and no account. Because the JLP, bro God, badmanism, it now go work. So we have the 28 now to stop, you know. So for Jamaicans, any Jamaican, right, who's ever questioning Mark Golding leadership, listen up, people. Mark Golding did not have that strength that we're talking about now. And to have Mark Golding so strong, 28, it is a force to reckon with, people. Let me give you my act of confidence. Mark Golding having 14 was like a little horn that disturbed them. And that little horn that disturbed them. Whenever Andrew Wallace had any form of constitutional breach, Mark Golding and the 14 said, no, come. Courthouse. And so then the 14 was biting like they are the government. Now, Jamaican people, can you imagine now? Feel proud. Every comrade must feel proud. Every comrade tonight feel relieved, feel happy in terms of what we have accomplished, what we have achieved. Major success. The 28 means, let me tell you what it means, that consensus will have to provide in governance going forward. Where you have a 2/3 decision, that consensus has to be provided. And I am not going to say that, okay, all right, we are going to be stalemate. No, this is not about stalemating. This is about good policy position for the people. I am not going to be one of those that say, okay, all right, if they have good policy, we should going to bring forth help to the Jamaican people, whether you are labor right, PNP, or whatever P you are, providing that it is going to be in the best interest of the people. Yes, the People's National Party, you understand, can support that because it is speaking to uplift Jamaicans, not uplift GLP. We don't practice the gully politics. We're in the constituency fund that when money being deployed, we believe said, yes, fix the PNP avenue, but don't fix the GLP avenue. And that is why we are different. We have Jamaica Labour Party brothers and sisters. And in our politics, we don't see GLP. We don't see PNP. When we are in government, and I want people to go back in the history of Michael Manley. When we are in government, what we see Jamaicans. When the game of politics over, when the general election over, and Michael Manley sits in government, he is the government for Jamaica. When PJ Patterson sits in government, he is representing Jamaicans, whether you are Labour right, PNP, or whatever P you are. And that is why when PNP pass policies, those policies stretch far and wide. It stretched across 4,411 square miles through Jamaica. 158 length and breadth. So when we said NIS, national insurance, when we utilize policies, equal pay for women, we never said equal pay for PNP women. We say equal pay for women. And all the policies that you have seen, the socialistic policies, never single out PNP and said, okay, this is PNP policies. We have no policy whatsoever that geared to say PNP policy. The policies that we put forward, Jamaica policies. Policies that uplift and move a nation forward. Edward Seaga and JLP can't say that. They have associated themselves with the CIA to damage our economy, to destabilize us. Because no, we can't have them escape the plantation. We can't have them to be so educated, because if they become educated, there wouldn't be any reasons for us to rule the government anymore. And why is that? Because we have no policies to move them forward. Today we have witnessed a Jamaica Labour Party without a manifesto win a general election. So-called win a general election. So you know the poison that spread, the intimidation, voter suppression. But my people, you continue. Some of you continue to self-inflict. But we are carrying on with the education and educating our people. Some of them say we are dunce because we are presenting the truth. But some of them who are brilliant, when they speak, they have no source to present their truthfulness. And so, this is the reason why our people listen to us. So, ladies and gentlemen, before I parted for my next 2 p.m. live, I wanted to catch me on the next 2 p.m. live. 2 p.m. Jamaica time. We'll be juggling some serious information. Right? And I will be asking Christopher Tufton to come in front of the class at 2 p.m. So on my ending, I am telling my comrade brothers and sisters, walk good, stay strong, hold your head high. We have nothing to be ashamed of. We know in our hearts of hearts and hearts of hearts, to our entire body, that the People's National Party dominate this general election. And so then, we are going to move on right, stronger and more powerful. Yes, sir.
I was seeing someone in the chat says that Mark didn't lose anyone on the battlefield, but Andrew lost 14.
Exactly.
On the battlefield.
Right? And here we are. As someone in the chat said, Mark did not lose anyone on the battlefield. Andrew Holness had lost 14 on the battlefield, which make us stronger. Stronger parliamentary representation in opposition, opposing constructively. Let us put that out there, because they believe that we are just going to oppose for opposing sake. We will be opposing constructively on issues that deals with the upliftment of our people. Stay tuned, my people. All comrades, stay tuned. We will never leave you. And so then, see you at 2 p.m. Right? Stick it with Mystic Sensation. Bless up yourself.
I know why you come to me with that foolishness, you know. You elect a prime minister, and is a prime minister run the country. It is time we learn to hold our leaders accountable for their actions and stop making excuses for them. Stop making excuses. Otherwise, go elect the people who really run in the country. And I don't want the right start that stupid argument. Hold the people you elect accountable and stop making excuses for them.